West End in New Orleans. Here we go. Let's talk about the lakefront. This is part two of our lakefront series. We started talking about a lot of the places on the lakefront that were vital to the war effort in World War II. Now we're going to keep going. We're going to just talk a little bit about the fun stuff on the lakefront. And we're going to go basically west to east. We're going to start with West End and end up on the other side of Orleans Parish as we go along here. So it's naturally called the West End of New Orleans or the West End of Orleans Parish because that is the parish line. When we hit essentially from a visual landmark, when you hit the new canal, you are very, very close to the parish line. Specifically now, with the way our outfall canals have developed over time, when the actual parish line is the 17th Street Canal. So there is a little bit of there's a little bit of land and there's the subdivision in between the new canal, which is there's only maybe half a mile of it left uh, at the lakefront, and then West End, and then you've got as we go basically toward the river, you have another subdivision that's focused around Fleur de Lis Avenue there, and then you hit the 17th Street Canal, the primary drainage canal, and then you're in Jefferson Parish. So that's the west end of New Orleans, and specifically for generations when someone said, well, let's go out to eat at the West End, or let's go, going all the way back to before the Civil War, let's go spend the weekend out at the West End. And that's the background. That's where we're going with this. I am, of course, Edward Brandley, your NOLA history guy, at NOLA history guy on all social media, and hunt me down, pretty easy to do. Our tour guide talking points. Shout out to the Friends of the Cabildo French Quarter walking tour guides, who everything is a resource because you never know what kind of questions you're going to get asked as you're walking the streets. So West End is indeed the western boundary of Orleans Parish at the lake. The new canal, which was built in the 1840s, defined the neighborhood. It defined when we talk about going out to West End, that's what we're talking about is, basically following the new canal out to the lakefront. From the 1860s until the 1890s, steam trains ran from Canal Street to West End. Now, prior to 1861 and the beginning of the New Orleans City Railroad Company, you basically got out to West End using the new canal. There was a railroad development that lasted for a few years, and we'll talk about that at some point in the future. But it was nowhere near the success of the Pontchartrain Railroad in Gentilly. But so basically, until the street rail got, or steam trains, and then later street rail got out to West End, you took a boat up to, or went on horseback or in a carriage up to West End. So West End became a day trip or basically a weekend destination. The main goal here was to beat the heat. And as if you remember, obviously we'll put a link back to part one of our lakefront stuff, the World War II stuff. The whole idea of West End or using the lakefront for the military hospitals, the Army hospital and the Navy hospital, was because it was a great way to beat the heat and catch the lake breeze at a time when you didn't have commercial air. You didn't have residential or commercial air conditioning at the time. Now, West End Boulevard was the main lake to city to lake. I say city because we're talking mid-city, City Park Avenue, where West End Boulevard begins, and it ran all the way out along the new canal. But it ran on the eastern side of the new canal. So West End Boulevard was on the eastern side of the canal. As I always say, don't you just love our directions in New Orleans? So the area began as a resort area prior to the Southern Rebellion, but things really opened up and grew after the war, after the Southern Rebellion. The main reason for that, of course, is the New Orleans City Railroad Company opened for business in 1861. The Union occupies the city in 1862. Now it's an opportunity for people to get out and escape the general heat, hassle, and melees of the city itself. The West End streetcar and bus line service the amusement area. Again, the West End line started as a steam train, and what the company did was they made they made a steam engine look like a streetcar. Kind of what the British would call a tram. If you remember, Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends, and there was Toby the Tram. That's kind of the idea. You gussied up or you made a steam engine look like a streetcar. But again, once electrification hit, then electric streetcars replaced steam, and then eventually, of course, the transit company wanted to discontinue electric streetcars, so the line became buses. Sicilian families dominated the businesses at West End. There's a number of reasons for that, but just you're going to see a lot of Italian, you're going to see a lot of Sicilian names when you start looking into different things out at West End. Hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, the opera, you name it. It's, all stuff out there that was influenced by Sicilian businesses. So that's our quick summary tour guide talking points. Now, we're going to go back much further into the 19th century, but to give you a visual idea of what we're talking about here when we talk about the West End, this is pretty much it. This is an aerial photograph of the bulk of this is West End Park. You see that circular roundabout, and there was a fountain in the middle of that. That is West End Park. Now that's evolved out in an incredible amount since this particular photo. So what you're looking at the in toward the middle of the photo there, that's kind of jutting out into the lake, that is the Southern Yacht Club. And so you've got the Southern Yacht Club on the western side of the new canal. Then you've got the new canal, and you see it widens out, so you've got a pretty good mouth and entryway there. Hard to see without zooming in at this point, but that's the new canal lighthouse on the other side there, on the eastern side of the new canal. And West End Boulevard ran all the way up. Now, if you look at the park, that's the bulk of the photo, you see it's got that road that runs from that roundabout moving east to the canal. And then there's a bridge there that allows you to cross the new canal. That bridge is where West End Boulevard ended. The streetcar, well, the steam engine, the steam train, and then the streetcar ran up to that point, turned around, and went back. So basically, if you were coming up on the streetcar or on the bus line, the road ran up to there, and then you got off of the transit, walked across the bridge, and then you were in West End Park. Now, West End Park has undergone a number of different evolutions over time. In this particular photo, you can see a lot of the amusement area and everything we'll talk about is gone now, and it's just green space. After World War II, you see more development here because you have the development of the Southern Yacht Club's marina, as well as the municipal yacht harbor in the lake itself. But this is a good wide shot to give you an idea of the area we're talking about. All right, let's go back into the origins of the area, and that's going to be in the 19th century. So here's a shot. Now this is an 1870s photo of the lighthouse that was built on the new canal in 1855, and you can kind of see the styling. Now, if you're a local, if you're from New Orleans, you get this, I guess is the way to say it, that the lighthouse here is very, very similar to the lighthouse that we all grew up with in the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. It's the lighthouse that got knocked over during Hurricane Katrina and then was later rebuilt, boosted up. But it's that same basic styling where you get that feel for it. So this is the 1855 incarnation of the lighthouse. This was the lighthouse and the new canal were a very important part of commerce at what was truly the peak economic times of the city antebellum. At this point now, we're talking 1850s. New Orleans is the second largest port in the United States. It's the largest port in the southern states. We think of the port being the Mississippi River, but the Mississippi was a challenge even with steam boats and river boats to get up and navigate around. One of the easier things you could do is you could truly just sail into from the Gulf of Mexico, Lake Borgne, then through Chef-Menteur Pass or the Rigolets Pass into Lake Pontchartrain, and then you could if your destination was Milneburg, you could stop at Port Pontchartrain there where the Pontchartrain Beach ended up, or you could come after 1840, well, 1838, when the canal opened for business. You could come all the way over to West End and come in the mouth of the new canal. Now, we're talking a busy time. So you had small craft and small ships coming into the new canal day and night. So naturally, we needed a lighthouse to make sure you didn't hit the jetties, the breakwater. So you got into the entrance of the canal safely. So in the 1950s, we've got this really nice navigation canal, and of course, anything you build for business starts developing a pleasure use. And one of the things that was, very, very quickly built, within 15 years of the canal being completed and open for business, was, of course, a yacht club. And it exists to this day. It's called the Southern Yacht Club. The building has had a number of different incarnations over time. Here is a sketch based of the Southern Yacht Club as it was in the 1850s. Now, here's the bridge that we were talking about in that aerial photo. So we are on the eastern side of the new canal. And if you when you come in, so this is a was actually as the caption says, it's a stereo photograph by Meunier from 1880. At the time, stereo cards were incredibly popular. Everybody, or anybody, I should say anybody remember the GAF Viewmaster and the 3D wheels that you could look through and you would see the photograph in three dimensions. That goes all the way back to the mid 19th century. What the photographers did was, at a minimum, just printed the same photo just a little bit off angle. So then you put it in a viewer that you held with your hand. And some of them, if you were doing this at night, you could attach a candle to it so you got light coming through it. And if you look through that handheld viewer, it's like almost like a pair of goggles that you were putting, like a VR headset or something, kind of the same effect, that you put that on and you could see the photo in 3D. So this is one half of one of those stereo cards, and it's the bridge at the mouth of the new canal, or just a bit in from the mouth of the new canal, and you can see some men just sitting on the bridge. Uh, could be most likely either musicians or service people, service industry people that are working the different venues at West End there in the entertainment district that you see behind the bridge. So now, initially we had a drawing, a sketch of the Southern Yacht Club. Now we actually see a photo of the Southern Yacht Club. So we're on now the western side of the new canal. You got off the train, you got off the streetcar. Well, in the 1850s, you took a boat up here because the streetcar wasn't running yet, uh, and then walked up this big pier that brought you out into the lake. And the yachtsmen, of course, could dock their boats here at the club and have lunch, have dinner. There were hotels in the entertainment area that then you could weekend. You could beat the summer heat up here. So here is some of the entertainment that we see in the area. This is Tranchina's Restaurant. Remember, I said get ready for some Sicilian names. Tranchina's Restaurant and the West End Hotel. Why did this? How did the Sicilians end up out here? Well, the Sicilians were ambitious, entrepreneurial, and this is kind of new territory. So while there were tons of hotels in all kind of other places, in particular at the Spanish Fort, West End was still basically under development, in particular just after the Southern Rebellion. So as the Sicilians are coming in the late 1870s and 1880s, they see opportunities to open restaurants, and then of course now this is a day trip. This is a weekend excursion to come out to West End. So let's go out to West End. We can have dinner at Tranchina's. We can stay at their hotel and have a nice, cool, beat the heat Southern evening. Here's another Meunier shot. Now, what we see here is the another hotel restaurant combination. So what's happened is Meunier, the photographer, has gotten off of the streetcar. He's gotten off of the steam train. He's crossed over the bridge that we saw in the previous photo, and now he's coming up into now he's coming up into the entertainment district. And so you see now you've got a hotel, you've got a grand hotel, you've got a smaller hotel, restaurant, and dining areas there. But then you've got this big entertainment pavilion in front of the permanent buildings, and you see we're all set up for a concert. Now this is the 1880s, so we're not talking jazz yet. Strictly speaking, this is be like would be marching style Sousa type bands, that kind of thing. So you basically proto jazz, I guess is the way to say it. Here's another shot of the music pavilion, and you've got a groom there with some horses, kind of a reverse. Just basically Meunier's walking around, and you can see that he's there. He's kind of circling the area there, and you get so we can see just a little bit different angle of the entertainment pavilion. Whoop. Here's a concert band from the 1890s. And you can see, well, first off, there's a couple of things here. Uh, Unless I'm mistaken, because we're in an age now of that it very well could be some Passe Blanc kind of Creoles of color that are playing in these bands. But odds are this is a white Sousa style marching. Well, not well. I say Sousa style marching military style band. Possibly not necessarily playing John Philip Sousa music yet, but you can see a whole bunch. You've got some euphoniums there. You've got some euphoniums. You've got some winds. You've got a number of cornets there as well. plus some drums, and you can see based on the snare drummer holding his drum, and then the bass drummer ready to just strap that back up. This is a marching band that could just move up and sit down and settle in at the pavilion. Odds are, when I say it's a marching band, they're obviously a military style, wearing a military style uniform. They're not likely, if somebody knows for sure, feel free to drop me a note and correct me, but this isn't likely a military in terms of an army band. This is a military style band that's wearing the uniform style or uniform type of the day. Now, again, the idea here is jazz is nascent at this point. King Bolden is just getting up his chops with a cornet, sitting in Johnson Park, Uptown. Storyville, 1897. So shout out to the Storyville Museum. The Storyville's not even here yet, odds are, but this is the entertainment that folks would take the steam train up to West End and come take in on an evening. So that's the 19th century. We're in, we're coming. We've the 1890s now. We've got, we're beating the heat, that kind of thing. We start seeing some changes coming into the beginning of the 20th century. The biggest change, of course, is 1895, 96. We see electrification of the streetcar line, basically. Now, remember, it's a steam train, but it's using the rail line that's going up there is basically using unpowered streetcars being pulled by a steam locomotive. By 1895, the New Orleans City Railroad Company electrifies their in-town lines. So by 1896 and 1897, we see the company running electricity along West End Boulevard. So coming up from the end of Canal Street at City Park Avenue, and then we see electrification moving up. Now, initially, we're not, I would say we're not talking electrifying residences because there's no residences in Lakeview yet. But so you're seeing just basically we're running electricity, we're running light poles up along West End Boulevard that can be then picked up by electric streetcars. So that's 96, 97 or so, moving now into the 20th century, which is bringing a new feel just from access and then, of course, music into West End. Here is the eastern side of the new canal, a little bit closer in than the mouth of the new canal. This is actually a little closer to what is now at this point by the 1910s. I'm going to have a PDF of this card, of course, because it's always fun to look at somebody's notes that they scribbled to a loved one or a friend as they're having a wonderful time. Wish you were here, kind of postcards. This postcard is from the 1910s. This is what later becomes formally Pontchartrain Boulevard. Now remember, West End Boulevard was on the east side of the canal. Pontchartrain Boulevard is here on the west side of the canal. It's the same way to this day, even though the canal's been filled in now for about 80 years. It's still the same way that Pontchartrain Boulevard's on this side. Now, the caption on the card says Shell Road Toll Gate, New Orleans, Louisiana. That's because Pontchartrain Boulevard was a toll road. It was a private road maintained by folks who lived along along the canal and businesses along the canal. So to access Pontchartrain Boulevard, now that we start to see automobiles using this road, they put up a toll gate and put it there. Now, there's just a quick diversion into cemetery lore. You might have heard the stories of the Storyville Madam, Josie Arlington. And Josie Arlington had a sporting club in a sporting club and Arlington Saloon in the Storyville Red Light District. And when she passed away, she was buried in Metairie Cemetery. The legends around her tomb, I mean, we're talking, anything from, very well documented legitimate stories that she was indeed buried there, all the way into what architect Robbie Cangelosi always refers to as moonlight manure, buggy ride history, also affectionately known. Um, and one of the stories was that if you were on West End and you were on the streetcar at twilight or at dusk, or you were on a boat on the new canal, you might see a red light glowing from Metairie Cemetery. And that red light was that was an indicator that was reflective of the spirit of Josie Arlington, the Storyville Madam. Nah, it was the red lamp that was hanging as a caution on the toll gate on Pontchartrain Boulevard. Here's a little bit of the entertainment area as it's evolving. Now, this is 1912, and you see by now there's this is the bridge that's across the new canal. So we're on the West End Boulevard side of the canal, and we're seeing you cross over, get off the streetcar, cross over the bridge, and you'll see the entertainment area at this time featured a Ferris wheel. So again, here's the various recreation pavilions. You see that big concert area has kind of evolved a little bit. It's becoming more of a sort of a small amusement park. You can see the excursion boat there in the canal with an ad for King Bee on the side. Then you've got you've got a dock and a side dock there on the lake side of the bridge with a cigarette ad all over the roof of the dock. You still got the hotels and the restaurants, everything as you cross back into the entertainment section. So after 1897, after we start seeing electrification of the West End line, so we go from steam to electric streetcars. One electric streetcar could pull multiple cars. You didn't need to run. These days we think of the streetcars as just individual units. But to go out to West End, you're talking about a day trip. Folks got up early on a Saturday morning, spend the day at West End. So you would see in particular, a St. Louis Car Company Palace streetcar by 1905 pulling a number of unpowered, what were referred to, well, they were streetcars, but they were unpowered streetcars. They were trailers. This is an example of a Coleman trailer that's labeled for West End. So the powered streetcar, of course, would pull the trailers up, then bring them all back, and you could run multiple, obviously have a larger a larger consist and a larger number of people coming through. One of my favorite pictures. I love that. Anytime I can work it in, I love it because this is Canal Street and North Rampart, which is a big vacant lot right now because of the Hard Rock Hotel 1031 Canal Partners fiasco from a few years back. But this is Canal and Rampart Street, which was a major transit hub because to the right of this frame, down a few blocks, of course, was South Rampart and the turning basin for the new canal, and then Union Station, the train station. To the left, of course, is Rampart Street, which takes you to Esplanade, and that becomes an extensive part of the streetcar network. The Canal Beltline is running at this time. This photo is from 1914. What's interesting about it is the big electric sign above these three streetcars. Now, these three streetcars, strictly speaking, they're not really connected to West End as such. That's a St. Louis Car Company Palace streetcar on the left-hand side. The one that's a little further up, that's in the middle, is a single truck Ford Bacon and Davis car running on the Paris Avenue line, which one of my favorite bakeries is Adrian's Bakery. That was It's located at the what is the other end of the Paris Avenue streetcar from long ago, and then that's a two-lane line arch roof car. It's the one of the 400 series. It's the forerunners of the green streetcars we have running now. Why is that big sign there? Because this is going to be 1914, and from 1911 on, this is where the excursion lines left, basically Spanish Fort and West End. Now, the Spanish Fort line was another separate steam train line until electrification. But by 1911, both lines were combined into the basically into the route of the West End line. If you got on a Spanish Fort streetcar, that streetcar went down canal, so it went as if the streetcars are coming towards you. So it went down canal, or rather up canal. I'm sorry, because it's going up toward the lake. Ran up canal. Then when the streetcar hit City Park Avenue, it made a left turn and then onto West End Boulevard. Then, if it was a Spanish Fort car, the car made a right turn onto Adams Street, later Robert E. Lee Boulevard, now Allen Toussaint Boulevard, and went out to Spanish Fort at Bayou St. John. The West End streetcar went the extra few blocks past Adams up to the bridge on the new, just continued to follow the canal up to the end. A little bit further along, now this is Adams Avenue coming to West End Boulevard. So this is Adams Avenue, and you're looking east. So this Adams Avenue to West End, this is what is this? August 17th, 1928, which usually tells you in particular when you see a handwritten notation like this, somehow this was involved in a lawsuit, and this photo was probably evidence in court or something like that. So basically what you've got now is this is where Allen Toussaint Boulevard is today, and this is the route that took you out to Spanish Fort. So this basically, the streetcar turned onto this set of tracks, went out to Spanish Fort. Now we're on the inbound run. So we're looking at from the front of a streetcar, and we're heading towards West End Boulevard. The car will then make a left turn here and will then proceed back into town. So it's going to go down West End to City Park Avenue to Canal Street and then back to Rampart Street where we saw that sign. West End continues to be a place to go. So by the 1940s, we see a lot of the older hotels. There's a number of different reasons why a lot of that fell into disrepair. Hurricanes blowing things down, storms in general, a whole number of different reasons. But by the 1940s, you see that most of the entertainment district had been demolished in favor of green space and a public park. Now, remember that aerial view, and you had that roundabout, and there was something in the middle? This is a night photo of the something in the middle, which was an electric fountain. That electric fountain went up in the 1940s and continued there well into the 1950s, and then it fell into disrepair in the 60s. And rather than try to salvage that fountain, because by now the municipal yacht harbor, Orleans Marina, after the war, you had a lot of, you just had a lot of boating expansion that couldn't happen during the war that kind of picks up again. The idea of West End as an amusement entertainment area just didn't quite pan out as much. So the fountain started falling into disrepair. The Orleans Parish Levy Board made it basically, they said, this is in the 60s. They were like, this is what people, the people in the neighborhood and the residents are like, we miss the fountain. We miss being able to come out and walk around at night on a cool night, catch the breeze, that kind of thing. So what the levy board did was they built another electric fountain, but that's closer to Canal Boulevard, and that is still there to this day. That is what we call the Mardi Gras fountain. And we'll do things on the Mardi Gras fountain at some point as well. Coming now to the west side or the east side of West End Boulevard. And West End Boulevard, now we're looking back. This is West End and the lake. So the bridge that went over the canal is gone. That the original bridge is gone at this point. There's a bascule bridge at Metairie Road. Everybody's driving automobiles now. It wasn't that big a deal to you drive back down, to Metairie Road, cross over and go on Pontchartrain Boulevard over there. There was another bridge as well as at Harrison Avenue. This is Lakeshore Drive after the Works Progress Administration actually built out Lakeshore Drive and paved it. Now remember, the seawall and land reclamation has already been completed. So you see that curve on the left-hand side. That's where Lakeshore Drive is coming, basically West End morphs into Lakeshore Drive. It makes the turn onto the lakefront. And from here now, that's where the seawall right here begins. We're kind of looking most likely from this picture, you're up on the New Canal Lighthouse here, and you start seeing what is still very much a reality today: the restaurants and bar rooms right on Lakeshore Drive on the new canal, and you still have this with Landry's, which used to be what for a long time it was Bart's and the Porthole, and then now you've got Landry's, you've got the Blue Crab, you've got Felix's, a couple of small venues up there. So this is all still very much a busy and active area. So this is in the early 19 this has to be 1941 at a minimum, because you see those barracks center in the background, and to the left, that's Lagarde Army Hospital, which opens for business in 1941. Here's an aerial view of West End in 1948, and you can start seeing some of the evolution here. Remember let's start with the mouth of the canal. It's still quite fuzzy there because it's an aerial view, but at the mouth of the canal on the left-hand side, you see the new canal lighthouse. Cross the canal, and you see the Southern Yacht Club. Now you see after the war, you see a growth now. The Southern Yacht Club actually they get the zoning cleared and everything. They build out their own marina. The entertainment district is all but demolished now, and you can see it's the green space that we saw in the other aerial photograph, and then that circle on the right-hand side of the green space is the electric fountain in West End Park. Now, that's, of course, evolved again so that row of trees is still there, but what's evolved is that a row of boathouses were built there along the waterfront. So you see the Southern Yacht Club, you see the marina, then you see the dock area, the water line. Then that's where the boathouses that are out there today were built out right along there. And then off frame to the right, that becomes the what's called the Municipal Yacht Harbor. In the middle, and it's still pretty much under development and construction there, you see the green space, and then what's being built out after the green space, see the rows of trees and the fountain and everything, that becomes the Orleans Marina. And so that now is, again, another marina harbor area as well. So this is 1948. You can see that West Lakeshore subdivision doesn't exist yet. The war is over, but Lagarde Army Hospital there on the left-hand side, on the West End Boulevard side of the photo, you can still see the barracks for the Army hospital. That becomes it's the biggest, it's a military hospital. After World War II, it becomes the first Veterans Administration hospital, the first VA hospital. That gets closed down, well, relocated to Mid City, up on Tulane Avenue in the 1950s, and then that's when that's all demolished. It's all leveled and becomes the West Lakeshore subdivision. Here's a watercolor painting of from an artist who is her name was Jeanette Boutal West, and it's a view of West End coming in across the bridge, and you can see what West End and of course again now it's a watercolor painting, so it's her interpretation. You can see that the area is becoming more restaurants, and it's becoming restaurants. Now, this is not the new canal at this point. This is the bridge over the 17th Street Canal. So you are looking, she's standing on the Jefferson Parish side of the 17th Street Canal, looking into the back of the restaurant district at West End. One of the most popular restaurants out in that district. You could come up West End Boulevard and turn in by the Orleans Marina, or you could come across that bridge in the watercolor painting that you just saw and go into the little restaurant district. And just to the left of that, before you drove out to the breakwater and into West End Park, you had Fitzgerald's Seafood Restaurant. And Fitzgerald's was built on, as you can see, was built out over the lake. So you parked over on Breakwater Drive, which is out of frame to the left. And Fitzgerald's is basically built like a fishing camp. You can see you walked up onto the pier, to the walkway, and out to the restaurant. One of the most popular places until hurricane took it out in the 1990s, and the family didn't rebuild. It was all but impossible to underwrite another restaurants out. Basically the whole area just died with Hurricane Andrew in the 1990s, in terms of of a restaurant and dining and entertainment area, mainly because it was just impossible to get insurance at that point. But until then, boy, especially in the 50s and the 60s, Fitzgerald's and Brunning's and Papa Roselli's and so many of these wonderful seafood and Sicilian restaurants out here, keeping that tradition of, from, Trancinas in the 1870s and the 1880s going. Here's an interior shot of the bar at Fitzgerald's in the 1950s. And, Daddy could come in and, have a beer while the family was, Mom was getting the family settled. He could come in and have a beer, have a cigarette, and then walk back over and join the family for dinner. That bridge, this is another painting, watercolor of the restaurant area at in West End. This is a painting of that same Bucktown Bridge that basically crossed over the 17th Street Canal back into Jefferson Parish. And here is a watercolor painting of Brunning's restaurant, which is basically a little further into the dining section and the dining district from Fitzgerald's. Unlike Fitzgerald's, Brunning's for the most part is built on the ground, and then there was a back pier section, back section built out over the water. You can see again this. You can see by the cars that this is a 1960s watercolor. Brunning's was my dad's favorite place in West End. If we were going out to West End as a family, odds are we were going to Brunning's. You saw the image of the lovely bar, the charming bar at Fitzgerald's. Brunning's also had a magnificent front bar that you could come in, stop, have a drink, maybe have a dozen oysters at the bar, and then head back over that little bridge back into the Metries and go home. Very much a common thing through the 60s into the 70s. Brunnings, of course, also did not survive the hurricanes of the 1990s. But what did survive from Brunnings was that bar. And if you go down to the Southern Food and Beverage Museum on Aretha Castle Haley in Central City, Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard, Old Dryad Street, the Southern Food and Beverage Museum is in one of the buildings that was part of the original Dryad Street Public Market. And it's if you're into New Orleans, well, if you're into New Orleans history in any way, you got to go to the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. SoFab is just wonderful. But when you walk into the museum, you walk into the bar from Brunnings. Go have a drink and, go, raise one to Big Ed because that was one of his favorite places to hang out. So now we kind of hit modern times. This is a post Katrina 2018 infrogmation shot. I think this is Froggy. I apologize if this isn't Froggy. I apologize. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure this is one of Froggy's photos. This is a shot of the New Canal Lighthouse and the current incarnation of the Southern Yacht Club. So basically, the photographer is standing on the seawall, looking back at the mouth of the new canal. Now, most of the new canal from the turning basin down on South Rampart Street curving. If you follow what is now I-10 out to the Pontchartrain Expressway, then West End Boulevard, and you see this incredibly wide neutral ground between West End and Pontchartrain Boulevards. That was the new canal, and basically most of it was completely filled in by 1949, except for the last about 6 blocks of the canal, which is still access to the Southern Yacht Club Marina, the Municipal Yacht Harbor, and the Orleans Marina. You just come in basically there around behind the lighthouse and in front of the Southern Yacht Club. As I said, there's been a number of incarnations from that 1870s, 1880s shots of the Southern Yacht Club. Unfortunately, in 2005, during Hurricane Katrina, the Southern Yacht Club caught fire and burned down, mainly because there was no way to get out there and save it because of the flooding. So after the storm, the club regrouped, regathered, rebuilt. Book recommendation, just like with our streetcars and everything else, support local authors. And Dr. Nystrom is one of the best local authors that you could possibly support. His book on his Civil War book is great. The guy is a good author, but my favorite book is his book Creole Italian: Sicilian Immigrants and the Shaping of New Orleans Food Culture. Because naturally, you bring Italian food into a city. Well, in this case, Sicilian. Well, I mean, when we say Italian, it's like Italian and Sicilian are synonymous when it comes to New Orleans. We really don't have Italy Italians in New Orleans because most everybody came from, the waves of Sicilian immigration in the 1870s and 1880s. Tranchinas didn't get there, that's why Tranchinas in those photos got there. Dr. Nystrom has this fantastic history of the Sicilian immigration and how the Sicilians came to I don't want to say take over the New Orleans food scene, but to become such a significant part of the New Orleans food culture to the point where that's why, well, the name of the book, of course, is Creole Italian. Now, if you go by our Friends of the Cabildo tour guide kind of, definition of Creole, we go with the Spanish Criollo, which the Spanish colonials or Spaniards in general would use the term criollo to refer to people born in the New World. So if you were a Spaniard, if you came from the old country, you were a Spaniard. if you were a Spanish colonial, you were a Creole. And that expanded, obviously, when that term hit New Orleans with the Spanish taking over the New Orleans in the 1760s, so that you've got Creole, and a lot of times Creole kind of absorbed French and Spanish Creole. But then later you start seeing the culinary world, and Dr. Nystrom does a much better job with this than I do. But to sum it up quick, what you start seeing is you have restaurants that are serving classic New Orleans food, which is basically French food, but French food that's interpreted with Spanish accents, Afro Caribbean accents, and all of that becomes what we call New Orleans food. But by the 50s and the 60s, in particular, one of my favorite examples of this is Brennan's restaurant. Brennan's in the 1960s was not a New Orleans restaurant as much as it was a continental restaurant. The Brennan served French continental, French food, as opposed to what then became, or what was becoming known as Creole French food. The food that the Tranchinas and the Mandinas and the everybody's here in New Orleans were cooking was naturally influenced by French, Spanish Creoles, Afro Caribbean. The Sicilians brought their red gravy and their sauce and their pasta, but certainly things pick up the native stuff as well, as it were, to the point where you had to make a distinction between an Italian restaurant and a Creole Italian restaurant. Have I piqued your interest? Go support this author. It's a fantastic book. Speaking of fantastic books, a word from your sponsor. Buy my books, the Brothers book, the story of my high school, Brother Martin High School, and its predecessor schools, New Orleans, the Canal Streetcar Line, and we talk a little bit about the starting points of the West End and Spanish Fort lines in that book. Maison Blanche department stores, Mr. Bingle is chapter 3. New Orleans Jazz. I originally pitched the book as Faubourg Treme. Publisher came back and said, how about we expand it? And there's some West End stuff out there because we didn't really hit it here because we're talking about those old Sousa bands and everything. But certainly the entertainment shifted to jazz after the in the late 1890s, and then certainly into the Creole jazz period in the early 1900s. Legendary Locals of New Orleans is a who's who of about 200 of the most notable legendary locals in the city's 300 plus year history. Krause Department Store, Krause the New Orleans Value Store is the name of the book. So much fun just building on all of the stuff that I picked up researching the Canal Streetcar and the retail on Canal Street, to the details of Maison Blanche and general history of Jewish retailing on Canal, even a deeper dive with the Krause brothers into the Hyman family. And never fails, there's a West End connection here too, because just out of frame on the right there would be Terminal Station, which before the Southern Railway station was built right there next to Krause, was the steam rail station that brought everyone out to Spanish Fort, and we'll deep dive that when we do a pod on Spanish Fort. Folks, that's it for this part 2 of our Lakefront podcast series. Again, I am Ed Branley. I am the NOLA History Guy, at NOLA History Guy on all social media. And there's the website, of course, NOLAHistoryGuy.com. Edward at NOLA History Guy. I don't want to say AMA like on Reddit, ask me anything, but sure, ask me questions, shoot me an email. If I can answer, if I can help out with a project, I'll be happy to give it a shot. Thanks again to the folks who did this fantastic parchment PowerPoint template that is out in the Commons. Thanks much, guys.